Thomas Nobel was an unusual child. By the age of 3, he had mastered basic economics. "Mother, what do you give this man so that he gives you groceries?" he asked. At the age of 5, Nobel spent his summer on the beach selling his toys to other kids so he'd have money. And by the age of 8, he was expelled from school for disruptive behavior. The teachers in his small town in Switzerland didn't exactly like to be challenged so much. So his father had an idea. He had to find a way to keep his energetic and somewhat unruly son motivated. And he said to Thomas, "You can sell fresh eggs around the neighborhood and you can keep the profits." Soon, having upgraded from walking to his closest neighbor's house to a new bicycle and then to a push cart, he was earning 100 Swiss francs a week. Unlike other kids at school, he really didn't have to ask for pocket money. He had it. By the time he was 12, Nobel's father wanted him to focus on his schoolwork, and he obliged. But the entrepreneurial spirit in this young boy could only be suppressed for so long. And 3 years later, Nobel discovered that he could pirate video games and he could sell them through newspaper advertisements. All this was legal in Switzerland at the time. So he developed a subscription model where you could subscribe to get new video games, and he managed to take his savings up to $40,000 US. Before long, Nobel headed off to what he saw as the land of opportunity, the USA, as a foreign exchange student. One thing led to another, and he ended up in prep school there and eventually enrolled at Babson College in January 1998. So once at Babson, he and Kyle White, his roommate there, started a class project. It was to research the phone card industry as a possible business opportunity. But there was one small problem. White's new girlfriend was jealous over the time Nobel and White were spending together on the business. This was a big issue, enough of an issue that it resulted in a parting of the ways, mutually agreed, so Nobel went ahead with the idea on his own. The challenge now was a big one, though. How can a foreign student studying on a student visa in the US set up and run a business? It seemed impossible. Nobel first turned for help to his international student advisor, who told him that no foreign student at Babson had ever started a business and that it was not possible on a student visa. But in his business law course, he learned this was not exactly true. A foreign person in the US was not prohibited from owning a business. He just couldn't be employed by it, nor could he earn any wages from it. Never one to take no for an answer, of course, Nobel struck a deal with his favorite professor. He would do an independent study project that would allow him to work more on his phone card idea. And instead of getting 8 academic credits all in 1 year for the project, the two agreed he would spread them out over the 3 remaining years of his time at Babson. He wouldn't be working in his business, of course. He would be working on it for academic credit, and he wouldn't take any wages either. The business would be to buy phone cards from distributors, sell them initially to retailers, targeting various ethnic communities around Boston. Now, at the same time he did all this, Nobel registered nobelcom.com in order to try selling phone cards online, because doing business online was the hot thing to do. But nobody had ever sold phone cards online, and many people said, "No way is that ever going to work." So he needed a plan, and he decided that what he would do is create his own phone cards. So in November 1998, he made a deal with a carrier called iTelsa, a carrier based in Florida that had really good rates. Nobel gave them $30,000 in return for the cards and holed up in a room in Babson's business incubator. He bought a vending machine, and he put his new phone cards in the machine as well as in his retail accounts. But exactly 1 week later, iTelsa bellied up. It ceased trading, and their cards stopped working. Nobel was annoyed, to say the least, but he assumed his money would be returned. But little did he know that crisis number 1 in his fledgling venture had struck. So emails started flying around the campus that these Nobel.com cards bought in the vending machine were a scam and to be avoided at all costs. In spite of the crisis, though, this was the perfect opportunity, thought Nobel, to promote the business. "I'm real," he replied. "I'm a student. I've been done over by my supplier. I'll refund you all. Please bear with me." By December, though, Nobel had less than $100 left in the bank. In addition to the $30,000 given to Itelsa, he had spent another $10,000 on the vending machine and some other expenses. So he called in desperation the Itelsa lawyer, who said that Nobel was at the back of the queue and he'd never see his money again. Desperate to survive, Nobel began a campaign. Every day, he left at least one voicemail message on every single phone at the Itelsa offices. Nobody was answering their phones, he remembers. I'd call and I'd leave a message on extension 101. And then I'd hang up and I'd dial back and I'd call extension 102 and I'd leave the same message until there were no more extensions to call. It was a fight for survival. His calls became quite emotional. "I'm a student. I have no money. You've taken away my business. I hope your sons and daughters aren't ever treated this way." The campaign worked, and after a week, Itelsa's lawyer called Nobel and said, "You'll get your money if you'll please stop the voicemails." He stopped the voicemails, and he got $10,000 a month for 3 months, got his money back. Nobel then retreated to selling other brands of cards in retailers and in his machine, and he started to gain some sales through the machine. But it wasn't enough. And in the absence of a better idea, he got the website developed and he started offering prepaid phone cards online in February 1999. Nobody was surprised when there were no orders on the first day after going live. But on the second day, there was one order. And Nobel packaged up and posted the phone card. It was probably a one-off, he thought. Maybe there won't be any next day, and sure enough, the next day, no orders. But then the following day, 2 orders. And the day after that, 4 orders, and on and on and on. And the orders started to grow. Maybe there was a business here. Fortunately, Nobel soon discovered that selling cards online was a dramatically better business model than selling them to retailers. When he sold cards to retailers, he typically got paid for the cards in 30 to 45 days. But when he sold cards online, he got paid with a credit card right away, and he didn't have to pay his suppliers, the carriers who carried the calls. Didn't have to pay them till 30 days later, sometimes more. So Nobel always had plenty of cash on hand. Throughout 1999, revenue and gross margins continued to grow. And by November of 1999, Nobel was doing $30,000 a month in revenue and growing even faster than before. At this rate, he was worried it looked like the business might turn profitable for the 1999 year, heaven forbid. So he spent some money to buy some computers and move his team to a small office off campus. He also decided that going forward, his cards would be rebranded and always sold under the name Nobel.com. Now, there's lots more I could tell you about the rest of the story, but here's the bottom line. By 2008, after a decade in business, Nobel's company was doing north of $200 million in annual sales, and its entire growth had been financed by customer funds. That is, by customers paying in advance for phone cards or PINs and access numbers that were then used to make future calls. So which would you rather do? Would you rather spend your time pandering to investors? Or would you rather find a business that can be grown with your customers' cash, just as Thomas Nobel did?